Boy, thank you tonight. Now, the Enyobeni Tarven tragedy in the East London area has cast the spotlight on whether enough is being done to prepare teenagers for life as young adults. Views have collided since Sunday morning, with some arguing parents are to blame while others claim children had too many rights under democratic South Africa. Joining us now to share insight into how the country can prepare its youth, our social worker Nthabiseng Madikgetla, and we also have with us in this conversation Samukelisiwe Coka, consultant with the South African Council of Women Graduates. Ladies, good evening, and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. Nthabiseng, let me start with what you are saying here. You're saying children are the most neglected group in South Africa. Just expand on that for me a little bit. What do you mean by that? What areas of neglect are you highlighting in particular where they should be addressed?
Good evening, Thabo. What I mean in that regard is that when it suits us as parents, as adults, as stakeholders, we look into issues that are affecting children. But when it comes to them identifying to us what matters to them, their voices are shut. So it's more like we are expecting children to be passive in their lives, because when it comes to issues that affect them, we tend to take the lead and say we know more about you more than you know about yourselves. We don't create a space where children as well are heard in terms of them being active participants in issues that are affecting them in their lives.
Yeah, and you're calling for conscious parenting. What does that mean in the context of the behavioral problems that we are currently dealing with, if we consider them as behavioral problems, by the way, displayed in the situation in the Eastern Cape?
Conscious parenting, Thabo, forces us as parents to introspect. Conscious parenting forces us to understand that children are not human beings to be controlled, but they are unique individuals that need to be respected for who and what they are. And also, conscious parenting means being aware of how your own personal issues as a parent affect your parent-child relationship, so that you are not on autopilot or you are not forcing for control, but at all times you are looking for connection between you and your child. And beyond just parenting your child, you acknowledge that you are parenting a human being that is unique in their own thinking, that is also experiencing their world in the very same world that you are experiencing it for them. So also another part of conscious parenting means the ability of parents to meet our own needs before we meet the needs of our children. Sometimes as parents, we are unable to meet the needs of our children because our own are unmet. As parents, we are parenting from wounds, we are parenting from shortages of financial needs and all that. And with that not being acknowledged, there is the likelihood that what you lack as a parent, chances of you being able to give that to your child are limited. And I'm not only talking financial lack, I'm talking values, I'm talking principles. Any principle that you lack, you as a parent, the likelihood of you passing that principle to your child is limited because you don't have that. So we can only give our children what we have. So it needs us to be conscious of who and what we are, value what we perceive parenting to be, what is our role on our children's life, and treat our relationship with our children with the utmost importance and the priority that it deserves, other than just forcing to exert control and power on our children.
Samukelisiwe Coka, let's bring you into this conversation. You're saying perhaps we are nefariously shifting the narrative and the current conversation to saying, well, the youth are the ones to blame. They are putting themselves in these potentially harmful situations and maybe absolving ourselves as society and not addressing our own contribution to what we deem as appropriate, depending on the politics that exist on the ground.
Yes, precisely. But I would like to give a context to my analysis. I concur with the previous speaker now on certain issues, but this is a very complex issue. However, I want us to talk about the nexus between parenthoodness and relationship building and social controls. Because what is happening in the South African context, we are a democracy in a transition, coming from a law and order regime where things were done in a different scenario. But as an excluded group, particularly, and I want us to be honest now about what we can do as a society. What is the state's role? What is the parents' role? What is the community's roles in child rearing? Because child rearing is not as easy as, it's not a panacea for a lot of social problems. But let me be specific to Enyobeni. The Enyobeni Tarven case has anomalies with the Limpopo tragedy that happened in 2010. I don't know if many still remember. There were young children that were found in a tavern because of a stampede. They died. There were about 12 of them on a New Year's Eve. OC's Tavern in Khayelitsha. Side B Tavern last year, 3 young women, 17, 20, and 21, were killed because of a blesser after he purchased them alcohol. But let me then take the issue. There is a state's role here. The state has curtailed the power of the parents or the social control of the parents to apportion discipline. And once a state does that, it breaks or it weakens the social organization. Secondly, as parents, as black parents, our children want to be in line with everyone. In fact, they are controlling the narrative. But I don't blame them, because the adult population has socialized alcohol as a lifestyle, as a normalized or glorified lifestyle. Then there's the issue of alcohol advertising that has glorified alcohol and given it a meaning in a township-related narrative. How then do we expect young girls who don't have alternative, age-specific recreational facilities to do when the adult population, because children learn what they live. So we need to take the Enyobeni tragedy as a lesson to say, in our 3 decades of our democracy, we allowed the state to take over. We externalized our responsibility of being parents to the states. We also did not empower adolescents, because you must remember, like the previous speaker has alluded, children are their own individuals who are influenced about their own settings and their own peers. I think in 2022, we should be talking about how to empower or strengthen our teens so that they become knowledgeable teens than ignorant teens who are merely influenced by peers.
Samukelisiwe, I want to take a break because I want us to drill into that, because it seems there is a failure in giving children the skills they need, as you put it, to become responsible adults, and why are we failing in that? But let's take a break. I'll come back with you on that score. We are in conversation with social worker Nthabiseng Madikgetla, as well as Samukelisiwe Coka, consultant with the South African Council for Women Graduates. We continue in a moment. Stay with us. Back with you tonight here on In Focus, and the conversation is on how do we better equip our young people to deal with the challenges of the new millennium. How do we equip them with skills that would help them to be responsible adults? It seems there's an area that is failing there as far as that is concerned. We are in conversation this evening with Nthabiseng Madikgetla, she's a social worker, as well as Samukelisiwe Coka, consultant with the South African Council of Women Graduates. Before the break, Samukelisiwe, you were saying we have, in a sense, allowed the state, right, in an attempt to overcompensate in terms of rights that are given to children. That in itself has left parents in a void where they don't have, I don't know, social tools to be able to do this. So how do you discipline? How do you give the skills that are needed for kids to become responsible adults, for adolescents to become responsible adults, in that gap where we are overcompensating to an extent in terms of giving children rights, which really, if you know the context of it, it is a good thing that got us here, but is it still applicable?
Well, rights, we're a constitutional democracy, so rights are at the center of our democracy. But rights, as much as they are important, they go with responsibility. But before we can empower our young girls and young boys, we need to empower our adult population. We need to assertive. We need to build the capacity, because you must remember, as an individual, you take a decision to have a child, but you are not even equipped yourself. That's why now we are facing this quagmire, because you have an adult population that is not equipped enough to deal with their own problems. Hence, we see this lifestyle, alcohol lifestyle that has been adopted by the adult population, because the issue of alcohol and binge drinking does not only emanate from the children, but it emanates from the adult population.
Yeah. All right. That is Samukelisiwe Coka there. Samukelisiwe, I'm going to bring you back in a moment, but let's bring back Nthabiseng here. Nthabiseng, I'm busy calling you with the wrong surname here. Your surname is Libina. I beg your pardon. And Nthabiseng Libina, social worker. Let's talk to those issues that Samukelisiwe is raising, right? How does discipline work in that context? I mean, you've already raised the issue that children are not a thing to be controlled, right? Parents need to build relationship. Now, those who talk of positive parenting, they speak of a difference between consequence and punishment. Consequence being that thing that leads children to learn from the mistake, and punishment being that thing that teaches children how to run away from getting caught. And we need to find a difference in being able to bring consequence where they learn something, and that is a value that they're going to grow with. So how do I know which type of discipline approach do I need to take here that will benefit my kid in that context?
Okay. Firstly, what we need to know as parents is that punishment is more about the parent. It's more about you as a parent expressing your anger, your disappointment, without an intention to educate. So punishment hurts the child because you are responding from your point of anger. But discipline includes teaching, and discipline takes time. Punishment is quick. You beat a child, you hit a child, you do whatever, and you are hurting them more than educating them. But discipline is when you sit the child down and you address the behavior that you are concerned about. But with punishment, you attack the child. I'll make an example of the two. Say you are a parent and you come in the house and you find that the dishes were not washed. With the approach of discipline, you need to sit your children down, or you need to express that when I come back from work and get into the house and find the dishes in the sink, this is how I feel, and this is how I would like us to help each other. This is our home, and explain to the children the importance of everyone playing their role in terms of ensuring that the house is clean for everyone. But with punishment, when you come in and you see the dishes in the sink, you get angry, you shout, you call names, you name your children, and you tell them how hard you work for them and how they don't appreciate. There is no teaching in that process of punishment, and you miss the opportunity to educate. So what punishment also takes away from us, it steals from us the opportunity to educate our children so that they are empowered with the behavior that we want them to know and the behavior that we see out of them. So with discipline, it makes you sit your child down and explain and be clear in terms of why you expect that, why you say that is important, and what they are doing is making you feel. So we don't have the time as parents to focus on discipline. We want punishment because punishment gives us quick results. So your children must hear you, they must know, and also you attack the child. You cannot make a child behave better by making them feel worse about themselves, which is what punishment does. But discipline has got some love. As much as you're teaching and there's consequence, the child still feels your love in that moment of anger, and they don't feel attacked as a person, but your focus is on this behavior that you are not happy about and that you want to address, right, and which you want to see changed in the future.
All right. Samukelisiwe, what needs to change from the state point of view? Because you've also emphasized a lot on the role that the state has played in the behavioral problems and challenges that we are seeing, lacking in terms of their own capacity to be able to know what is right. They are lacking in terms of their own capacity, in terms of mental, emotional challenges, and how they are dealing with their problems. Do laws need to change?
I think we have enough laws. We don't need more layers of laws, but we just have to enforce the current laws. South Africa is not short of regulatory frameworks and legislative frameworks, but it's the enforcement and the competency of the states in enforcing those laws. And the states needs to butt out from our homes, because the state is bringing a very confusion. Let me talk about poor homes particularly, because we need to contextualize this discussion. Poor homes who have socioeconomic status that is low and who are reliant on the states don't have a luxury of getting into middle class services. As a result, they are between the rock and the hard place. So the state needs to lessen up their interference because they are not empowering. The state needs to build community outpatient alcohol treatment centers. The state needs to build community health, mental health facilities, support services that are attended by the parents and the children. Because you must remember, as Nthabiseng has alluded, most of the punishment comes from the angle of anger, because this parent is facing so many challenges. So because of the weak social controls, the state needs to invest economic zones in the townships, age-appropriate, alcohol-free facilities, adolescent development projects, because we need to start talking to our children about what it means to be an adolescent. Yeah. It's not an easy conversation, but it's a necessary one. Yeah. How to avoid binge drinking and underage drinking. What is it that we can do? Like my organization started alcohol screening days for high schools and for colleges, because we were looking at the amount of alcohol consumption. Sure. So we need to start interrogating and engaging college students, high school students about What is it? Because we cannot expect them to live in an island.
That's why we're going to have to leave it for tonight. Social worker Nthabiseng Madikgetla, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. And Samukelisiwe Coka, consultant with the South African Council for Women Graduates.